to show you the parts to the camera crane here. It's not very many of them, and they're all very simple items. We have two of these PVC T's. These are 1 inch. There's two of those. And I purchased 3 casters. These are the wheels you would put on a cart or on a chair that you wanted to roll. So I have 2 of them of this small size right here. This was the wheel that went on this small caster. So you can see that just went right in there. Then I just took a grinder and I ground off that rivet that was holding this, and then I just pulled out the wheel. Then I have 1 larger caster. This had a pretty big wheel on it. Now the space right between this caster right here is just enough to fit this 3/4 inch board pretty snugly. I had to crimp this just a little bit, but that'll fit on this 3/4 inch board, okay? This was a much larger caster here, and it had this larger wheel here. So this larger caster accommodated 2 pieces of this 1x4, but of course 1x4s are actually 3/4 of an inch. So it accommodated 2 pieces of this right here. So you can see right here, we've got 2 pieces, 1 piece here and another piece right here. This piece of wood here measures about 7 inches high. I just rounded it off just to make it look nice. So we've got a caster on the bottom, got 2 pieces of wood, and now this spins rather nicely. And bolting it in place with just 1 bolt is sufficient because it rests on the bottom of this caster right here, so it can't wobble. Now this will fit on the tripod. Now you're all familiar with these. These are the plates. They come in all different varieties, but this is what fits on the bottom of all tripods. You screw that on your tripod like that. Or this is for my large camera. So on the bottom here, I had to buy this aluminum bar. This is probably one of the most expensive pieces of this whole rig. I cut enough of it just to fit on the bottom of this caster. I needed a flat plate on the bottom of this caster. I cut some of this and it fits right on here. I took 2 1/4 inch bolts and bolted this to the top of the caster. Now this is going to accommodate my plate that holds the camera. So I had to drill a hole right here, the same size hole is in the bottom plate here, and then I had to drill another small hole to accommodate the pin. Now aluminum is fairly soft, and I didn't have any taps. In other words, I didn't have something that I could make a thread with in this aluminum plate. But what I did was I drilled this hole just under the size of this 1/4 inch bolt, and I ground down the top of the bolt to make a point on it, and then I just tightened that bolt into this aluminum, and that acted as a tap and actually gave me a thread right in there. So now I've got my threaded hole for the camera and the pin. I have 2 different mounts which have two different size pins, so I made 2 different holes there. So one of these fits this way, and this one fits this way. Okay, so that's how I mount the plate to the bottom of this caster. Now it fits in that threaded hole. Now I've got my camera mount attached to the bottom of this plate. So now it can slide right in here like this. Now I've got this sturdy mount right here with the caster, and this spins around. So I've got 2 pieces of 1x4. Of course, this is 3/4 inches and this is 3/4 of an inch. That accommodates that caster. Bolted those together. I've got my caster. I have the metal plate on the bottom, which fits right into my tripod. Next thing I purchased was 2 of these poles. They extend, and I bought these at a pool supply store. Now these extend out to about 8 feet, And these are nice because it has this portion right here. This tightens down right here, so that can't move. This is tight now. There are other poles that won't work that are similar to this. And on this type of pole, you actually have to tighten both sides, twist both sides like that. But you don't want that. You want to be able to tighten this pole and not have the poles move. You want to be able to keep these poles in one position. In other words, say this is the top here and this is the top here. When you tighten it, you don't want these to twist. Now this is an extension right here. It was purchased separately. This held some kind of a brush, and that fits right into the pole here. Now there is one thing with this pole. This pole is called a porpoise. This adapter here, this little white adapter, fits into the big end. Well, I don't want this into the big end. I wanted it into the small end because when I use my crane, I wanted the big part to be down here and the small part of my crane to be up in this end. So all I did was I took about 6 or 7 inches off the large end. I cut that and then I bolted it to the small end. So the large end is down here. Here's the small end. Here's about 6 or 8 inches I cut off. I bolted this to the small end, and then this would once again accommodate this plastic piece. Okay, for the end of the crane, this is the part right here that holds the camera. All I used with this is a piece of plywood. I think this is a 3/8 inch piece of plywood, could be 1/2 inch, whatever you have. Then I also had my piece of 1x4. This piece right here is the 3/8 inch piece of plywood. These two pieces right here are the 1x4s cut to this little shape right here. This part here holds the camera. So the camera go right on there. Now I needed a way to hold the camera onto this little platform. So I took this aluminum bar once again, cut off a small piece, and I glued it to the base of this plywood. And I took this 1/4 inch bolt, I drilled the hole, jammed that bolt into it so it's sort of self-threaded itself, and I needed a way to turn this easily, so I just took a washer, put it on the end of this bolt, and I bent the washer over in my vise. So it makes this little, looks like a little hat almost. But that gives me a way to easily turn this bolt. So then that screws right into my camera base. So now my camera's easily mounted. I thought the best camera to use on this boom would be this type of camera, where I have a little monitor here and then I have the camera. So I have a long cord, and I often use this with a monopod. For instance, if we're on taking a train trip and I want to get some video right down by the wheels, I put this on my monopod and I can view what's in here and put this wherever I want it. I thought this would be ideal for the crane, but it's really not. This being at the end of the crane and this being at the base of the crane, what I do is I'm looking at this monitor and I'm not looking where my camera boom is going. So I really found that the best camera to put on the end of the crane, since it's only 8 feet out anyway at the longest, would be this camera. And from that distance, I can see the monitor fairly well. And I can also see where the crane's going. Now the distance here is equal to the distance at the back of the crane. And that will allow my shot to be level the whole time it goes up. But sometimes I'll want my camera to tip down as I move it up to get a shot like this. So in order to do that, I had to build a third part. This is the part right here. That will just fit right onto the back of this, and I have 3 holes here. I can choose any one of these 3 holes, put a bolt in there, and a wing nut, and that will hold that in place. And I'll show you how that works in just a few minutes. All right, let's put these pieces together now. We have our base, and we have these 2 PVC parts with the caster attached. Now once these are bolted in place here, they won't move. They'll stay here permanently. Now this can flop up just a bit, but once that's tightened down, it won't. It'll stay in place. Now to attach this caster to this PVC pipe was a bit of an issue. What I did was I cut a round circle. I jammed it in to the end of this pipe, right in there. In other words, I made a plug for the pipe. So now with that plug inside here, it's hidden inside there, I cut this square piece of wood. To attach the square block to the PVC, I first cut the square piece and drilled 2 holes for the screws. I countersunk them so the caster would fit flush on the wood. And then I just screwed it into the round plug. That attached the base to the PVC. Now if the round circle that you put in here tends to turn if it's not jammed in tight enough, mine was. I had to really pound it in there with a hammer, so it's not going to move. But if you put one in there and it does move, all you have to do is put a screw down in the top of this PVC to hold that in there. And then this part won't spin, because this PVC pipe and this square piece, they can't turn. Only this needs to turn. Then we'll attach the second one down here. This is approximately 6 inches apart. So now what we have is this base that turns, that fits on our tripod, and these 2 parts here that spin independently. Now if this all seems confusing right now, it'll all fall into place here shortly. Now that I have my base on, I'll put it in my tripod. Now what we've got is this caster mounted to the 2 pieces of 1x4, clamps right on there, and then clamped on the side we have our 2 pieces of PVC. The next step is to take our 2 pool pipes. We fit them right through there, and they slide right in this 1-inch PVC. I've drilled a hole right in the top of this PVC and through this pipe, and I just drop this nail down in here. It's a pin. I'll slide this second PVC pipe in here, and once again I have a hole drilled in here. The holes may not line up quite as good as they should, so I've marked one as a top pole and one as a bottom pole. So now we're left with 2 poles that are firmly attached to our base. They slide right in that PVC, 1-inch PVC pipe. It's just lucky that this blue pool pipe happens to fit fairly snugly inside that PVC. So now what we need to do is attach the end here. Now this is why it's important to get this type of pole that you can move around like this, and you can tighten it right there. So I can tighten that at any one place. I don't want to have to tighten this by turning the pole like this. I don't want to have to tighten this pole down by turning it. I want to be able to keep this level and then just tighten it right here. And I have this crazy looking part here. This is the top pole here. This is where my camera will go. So I put this on the top here. It comes with this little plastic pin. It's very easy to slide this through. Take the other part. Take this same pin. Put it right through there. Then I tighten these down right here. Now we have something that will always stay parallel. Now I can change the attitude of this camera. I can have it pointed down and then tighten this. So whenever I go up or down, that will always stay pointed in the same direction. If I want this level, I just undo this, slide it back to where this is level, tighten it down. I can go up, down, and this platform here will always be level with the horizon. That's because these two bars are parallel. Now it's important to have your camera level. It can't be tipped one way or the other. In other words, I don't want my camera tipped at an angle like that. I need it straight. But that can be accomplished just by tightening this bottom bar. I just keep it level right here, tighten that up, and it stays level. The one thing I haven't shown you is the balance on the other end. I'm getting a 5-pound weight to put on the other end, but basically all I did was put another dowel on the far end of that camera, and I've got a weight on it. And with that weight on the other end, I can just balance this camera. Okay, so once again, here we have the camera mounted to the end of these two poles. These poles, of course, extend. We have our mounted base here. And right now, I just have a pole on the end of that with a weight. I'm going to get a 5-pound weight soon. Now, there's one part I haven't talked about, and that's this extra piece here. Now, as long as these bars are parallel, this camera will stay parallel to the horizon. But if I want the camera to change its angle as I move up or down, that's what this third piece is for. I glued a slot in that one piece of wood to accommodate that extrusion. Then I just glued it, put a couple of nails in there. I've got these 3 holes in the front. I'll choose one of them. I'll put this in here. And what this does is changes these 2 bars from being parallel, and when they're parallel, this will always stay level. But when these bars are closer at the front than they are in the back, here's what happens. This changes. So say I wanted to take a picture of these tools down here. This is level. I'm getting a shot of those. And as I move up, the camera still points down at them. This extra piece here, it can stay on there all the time. But I do have the 3 holes in there so I can move this either up or down. And that will vary my pitch of the platform as I move the crane up or down. But that can be left on there. And then this can just be attached back at the bottom because most likely I'll want this parallel most of the time. Now again, this is parallel. It's pointing down a little bit now. I just loosen this one, bring it up horizontally. Now it's parallel to the horizon. Now the disadvantage to a rig like this is that it's so light, it tends to be a little flimsy, so you can't manhandle it. It's not that it will break, but it might shake. So it has to be lifted up and turned very smooth. The advantage is that it breaks down into practically nothing, and we can carry this in our RV very easily. Okay, I'm going to take off this extra piece right here just for a moment. Like I said, that can be left on there all the time if you want. But I wanted to explain why we had the shape like we do here. It's sort of a U shape. So without this short extrusion here, this part here would hit the back part of this right here. So that's why this has to be brought out. That way this bar won't interfere right back in here. It will work for a little bit, but once you get very high, if you just had this bar in here, it would hit the back of this right there. Now, of course, the weight here on the end, which I just have this bucket here right now, this weight will have to move forward or backward, depending on how far the poles are stretched out. So the further the pole is stretched out that way, the more weight will have to be back that way. So I'm going to make some kind of arrangement here where I can have a 5-pound weight that I can move up and down this pole and lock it in place. You get the idea how that works. Well, there's always improvements that can be made to homemade items like this, but I think this is going to work out pretty good. So let's take it out in the field now and give it a try.